Actually, it's not. It's the end of March, but I'm gonna make a video about spooky shit anyway because who even cares? I've always been a fan of things that are strange and disturbing. I used to read a lot of creepypastas on 4chan in the mid-2000s for one, either before creepypastas became generally boring and stupid, or before my underage pubertal brain outgrew them. Even today I find myself watching a lot of videos from the so-called YouTube horror community. And while it's kinda worth it since there's the occasional diamond in the rough to be found there, I realize a lot of what others find creepy doesn't coincide with what I find creepy. Generally, I'm much more drawn to the surreal and unnerving than to things that can directly physically harm you, works that offer a strange, dreamlike vibe that gets under your skin more and more as you think about it. The best example of this, and our first legitimately creepy thing, is the manga Fuan no Tane, or Seeds of Anxiety. While the general anime and manga fandom reaction on websites like Manga Updates and My Anime List seems to be a resounding meh, this manga perfectly summarizes what I personally find scary. Just as this page sums up the author's brilliant sense for otherworldly horrors seeping into our unsuspecting daily reality. It's not about a big mean monster wanting to eat you up or a scary guy with a mask and a chainsaw chasing you around. It's about the briefest of supernatural experiences that can shatter your fundamental understanding of reality in a mere instant. The stories are extremely brief, unrelated from one another, and tend to end in a manner that some find to be anticlimactic, but that's why I think it works so well. It takes advantage of the fear of the unknown in the most advanced or basic manner. I'm not even sure myself. You don't know exactly what happened, but you don't need to. Your imagination will fill in the blanks better than the author ever could have. The art is not really the type of thing I'd normally give a fuck ton of praise to in this channel's videos, and that it's not particularly stylized or expressionistic, and instead aims for a higher level of realism. But that works flawlessly given its primary appeal, that of down-to-earth and subtly distressing horror. An advantage of drawings over live action is that the introduction of fantastical beings or phenomena that either don't exist in our current time frame or never existed to begin with is that it's less immersion breaking. When you see a dinosaur in Jurassic Park, you'll instantly know that it's an animatronic or a computer model because dinosaurs don't exist in the real world anymore. But in a realistically styled manga, this sudden detachment can't happen because everything is rendered in the same artificial two-dimensional manner. It's not trying to trick you that what you're seeing is real, but instead vividly suggesting what it would be like if it were real. There's also a live-action adaptation, but I'm not particularly excited to see it given that I heard they gave it a story, instead of just adapting it as it was as a bunch of small, separate events. Speaking of real life, by the way, the next creepy thing is from a live-action movie, namely the Eraserhead Baby from, well, Eraserhead. This is probably my favorite live-action movie of all time. It's surreal enough to be mind-blowing, yet cohesive enough to make a strange kind of sense and deliver a solid theme of powers far beyond your control, forcing you into deeply uncomfortable situations, and it also features the most terrifying goddamned animatronic ever. In giving us this little abomination against all things good and holy, David Lynch understood that less is more. Low-budget, early to mid-70s technology could hardly create the liveliest animatronics, so instead they made a deeply strange baby that really doesn't do much. It mostly just sits there and cries, yet despite all that, it's more terrifying than the most grotesque movie monsters. Nothing about it is explained and there's no grand reveal. The film just cuts away to the protagonist's soon-to-be ex-wife tending to it, and that's it. That's your introduction. The baby can't actually do anything to blatantly physically harm you, and yet with its general lack of over-the-top theatrics, the film manages to make this tiny thing creepy as hell. Simply through brilliant sound design, its deeply unsettling look, and the general atmosphere surrounding it. It's not something that you can really put into words, so just watch the film. It kicks ass both as a visually amazing, metaphorical and deeply atmospheric audiovisual tale and as a great work of horror. Speaking of horror that is hard to put into words, our next and final creepy thing is Play With Me, an interactive online stop-motion video and art installation by experimental animator Van Sowerwine. Yeah, there's not much I can give away about this. All I can say is that if you think it's gonna be some boring spooky killer little girl doll, you're very mistaken. This video is deeply troubling to watch for vastly different reasons compared to the average online horror content. Even the Eraserhead baby in its own way concerned the well-being of the viewer. Henry was clearly meant to be an audience surrogate and feel threatened, maybe not in a direct physical way, by the innocently abominable little bastard. You'll find none of that here, but what you will find is still unbridled horror, and of course it's stop motion, which has an inherently unnatural feeling to it. Sadly, the original interactive version on the official website of the creator is not online anymore, so all you have is a YouTube rip. I'll try to contact her about it, but I can't really promise anything. What's even more interesting is that this was originally not just an internet video, but a real-world art installation. I can't say I've experienced it personally, but I wish I did. Imagine viewing this inside of a small wooden shed, isolated from the rest of the world, taking in the full artistic experience unhindered by the usual real-world surroundings. If you ever want to feel deeply uncomfortable, give this a shot. As little honorable mention, we have Poco Poco Picotan by Nana825763. She's the creator of the famous YouTube 666 horror video, but I'm honestly not a huge fan of that one, and I think the rest of her work is very underappreciated. I'm including this as purely an honorable mention because I think it's more just a great piece of art than genuinely terrifying. It has a pretty clear and simply delivered message, and it just works very well. And Nana also has a really good art style, just really charming and cute, which actually makes the terrifying stuff all the more impactful. She also has all sorts of videos. A lot of them are other horror videos, and some of them are just about her pet ants, believe it or not. Or, actually, I think the owner of the channel might be male. I honestly have no idea, and I don't know if I really care that much. And lastly, there's a making of video for Poco Poco Picotan, which you should definitely watch too.